The government in Benin says the armed forces have foiled an attempted coup. Earlier, a group of soldiers announced on television that President Patrice Talon was being ousted. Now, the Interior Ministry of the West African nation now says the president is safe and the regular army is back in control. A dozen troops have been arrested. Talon is due to step down in April after a decade in power. Benin's Interior Minister gave more details of what happened.
A small group of soldiers launched a mutiny aimed at destabilizing the state and its institutions. Faced with the situation, the Beninese armed forces and their hierarchy, true to their oath, remained Republican. Their response allowed them to retain control of the situation and foiled the attempt. The government, therefore, urges the population to go about their activities as normal.
For more, let's cross over to Beverly Ochieng. She's a security analyst specializing in the Sahel and global power competition in Africa. Good to have you with us, Beverly. Now, what do we actually know about the group behind this coup attempt and what might have driven them?
Well, yeah, so the group called itself the Military Committee for Refoundation. It's led by Lieutenant Colonel Tigri Pascal, who some sources say is quite a close associate of the former President Boni, but then there are no clear links between what has happened and any of the former leaders and the opposition. However, they did issue a fairly lengthy statement where they started off by saying that the insurgency in northern Benin is one of the reasons that they're taking power. They talked about Talon's alleged mismanagement of the country, the repression of the opposition. It seemed as if they were trying to reach out to as many other people as possible in terms of expressing grievances that have been ongoing in the country, some of which have been minimized either through the consolidation power by Talon himself. Elections are coming up next year, both legislative and presidential, and of course there have been some misgivings about the fact that opposition candidates have been excluded. So it's a two-horse race between the successor of Talon, who is the current finance minister, as well as an opposition politician.
Yeah, because Benin had been seen as relatively stable, and as you say, President Talon's due to leave office in April when the elections would be held. So I guess the question is, why not just wait for the elections to happen?
I mean, by suspending institutions, it means that essentially you are withholding that election from taking place and delegitimizing the process and even just creating more public mistrust in a process which has led to some contention with opposition members. So in doing so, the military is seeking, or this faction of the junta was seeking to reset that, which is what we've seen across the region, where militaries try to intervene, where there's heightened political tensions. They act as arbiters, but sometimes they only end up complicating the institutionalism and the politics.
We'll speak about that general scenario shortly, but this coup was foiled, coup attempt was foiled within hours. But what does it mean for the country going forward, particularly with the elections coming up?
Well, for now, there will be definitely prevailing uncertainty. In the coming days, we're likely to see additional people being either arrested in connection with this coup attempt, people who may have either backed the so-called coup leader. We are seeing lots of calls online. There was a video that was circulating purportedly showing the person who was behind this coup attempt calling on Beninese to show up and protest. There were small-scale demonstrations taking place, but it didn't look significant enough to cause any instability. There will be questions about the credibility of institutions and elections, whether security forces do remain united behind Talon. He has progressively, in the 10 years he's been in power, instituted control over them and influence over them, but also the opposition might have more misgivings, and this will be a test on that election and the legitimacy of the government.
And as we've mentioned, we've seen several coups recently in the region, including just last week in Guinea-Bissau. Is there a kind of copycat effect encouraging soldiers to try the same in West Africa?
I mean, I don't imagine there's a WhatsApp group where every soldier or every army is saying, oh, like, maybe we should do it this week. It may not be the case, but of course there are concerns about democracy and about the stability of various institutions. ECOWAS itself has even said, and this is probably the first time they're saying this, that they are willing to mobilize a regional standby force. We saw them say that with Niger, only for them to back down. Of course, there's questions about the politicization of militaries and the fact that during pronounced periods of disputes, as we've seen with Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea-Conakry, and now with Benin. And then instances where insurgencies are taking hold, like in the Sahel, the military stepping in. But there will be questions about whether there'll be longer-term stability, given that military seem to be more willing to intervene, and ECOWAS seems to be caught on the back foot of this.
And just before you go, Beverly, I was just going to ask you about ECOWAS, the regional body. They've not been able to stop this kind of trend going on. How would you assess that regional governance or regional oversight that ECOWAS seems to be unable to apply?
Well, yes. I mean, this is one of the results of that. And it's not just about ECOWAS being able to impose itself overall. It's about tackling also some of the grievances that do lead to this level of pronounced intervention. So in Guinea-Bissau, for instance, for a long time, the judiciary, for instance, the legislature were not operating or operating under capacity. There was no concern of statements from ECOWAS. With the insurgents in the Sahel, they only managed to step in a bit too late to talk about how they want to form a counter-terror force. There are various issues around bureaucracy, straddling sovereignty, even funding for counterinsurgency, for economic cooperation, for politicization. So juggling all of those has been quite difficult or challenging for ECOWAS. But also the hegemon that Nigeria used to be as the headquarters of ECOWAS and as being a vocal power within ECOWAS has reduced significantly, given the fact that it is also grappling with insurgencies.
Beverly Ochieng, security analyst, we appreciate your insights. Thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you.